If you've ever been one of the people that wondered why I don't have a long bed, well, in addition to the extra operational cost of having a long bed, I don't need it, and it won't fit in the shop. Not a whole lot of room here. Welcome back to the channel. Today we start a new build. It's a 2021 Acura RDX Aspec all-wheel drive. Now, what does all that mean? Well, it's a fancy Honda CR-V with extra rice. Now our little Acura here hit a deer and it did a little bit of damage. Not nearly as much as that MKT we did a while back, but unfortunately this one doesn't run. I bought it as a stationary vehicle, so I took a huge gamble because I think I know why it doesn't start. I ain't got no gas, but we'll see. I haven't tried to start it yet. It was a little cold outside, so I brought it in here. I was actually gonna make this video down where I picked it up in Virginia where it's 50 degrees, but I just didn't feel like it. Brought it back here and it's like 0 out now. So that's why we're in the shop. So if we can get it running, we'll pull it outside, we'll back it off our trailer, bring it back in and take it apart. If we can't get it running, we're gonna take it apart right here. So let's see if we can get it running first. So I was much lazier than normal, and as usual, it was dead at the auction, but I didn't feel like charging it on the way home. So we're just gonna have to jump it. We'll start there, because that's one reason it won't start. Could be the only reason. Got power. It's a good start. I promise you, it wasn't this dirty when I bought it. All this happened on the way home, and it might even be bad enough that I'm going to clean it before we work on it. So, if you're wondering what the Aspec package is, well, it's like the pre-riced version. Comes with blacked out trim, the big 20-inch wheels, and the option for the bright red interior, which is kind of a love it or hate it thing. And I kind of like it. So, okay. Took a while for it to grow on me, but it did. So let's see if it starts. Well, kinda. Doesn't stay running though. And the gas pedal doesn't do anything. Lots of dash emojis. I think I know what's wrong with it. So let me go see if my suspicions are correct and see if I can get it started. I'll be right back. There goes nothing. Still has lots of dash emojis, but it does go into gear and it does run. So if you want to see how I got it started, I'll post a short. But in the meantime, you guys can guess at what was wrong with it. Now that it runs enough to get it off the trailer, let's pull it outside, take it off our trailer, bring it back inside, take a look at it, and start tearing it apart to figure out what we're going to need. Used parts are way overpriced, actually more than new parts. And I don't know that I'm going to do a lot of these, so I don't think I'm going to buy a parts car, so I think we're going to end up going with new parts. I wrote an estimate, still not a total. This thing should not have been totaled, but it is what it is. That's why sometimes titles don't matter. Like, this thing should not have a rebuilt title, but it will. So before we take it off of our frame rack, trailer that it's already tied down to, we might as well see if we can straighten out a little bit of that upper tie bar. The accident really doesn't look that bad. It should be all bolt-on parts. The worst part is the headlights that are $1,500 a piece. A hood, a fender, radiator support, condenser, radiator. It does have the fancy 1, 2, 3, 4 Y, F, A, B, C, D, E, F, G Freon, so we're gonna have to pay somebody to take that out if there's anything in it. And if not, we're gonna have to pay somebody to recharge it, which neither way is cheap. So that's about our biggest expense beside the lights. There is a camera up front that is in the back. Hopefully it's still good. And just some bumper parts. Looks like the trim is still good. It's just the upper cover. So let's get it apart and see what awaits us inside. But first we're going to pull this out a little bit, just so taking it apart is a little bit easier. And kind of align everything else. It's really all the damage. See how easy it moves with Big Bertha before we get the winch out. Like butter. Inside. Headlight. Some assembly required. Extension cord. We're not going to throw out those headlight pieces because they do have some fasteners on them, and we also might need them so we can give them back if we get our headlights from somewhere that requires a core charge. No presents. Not sure where I'm getting them yet, so don't know if I need them. Better to keep them. So I may or may not have washed up our little RDX here. It's not on video, so you can't prove anything. And I did that because I need to put the parts in the car, and I don't want all that salt inside the car. So just wash it up real quick. Plus, I can take a better look at it, and I really like this color, so let's see what it looks like. Let's get our front end apart and put our parts list together. We're going to start by pulling the battery out. It's frozen. So we're going to set it on the floor in the paint room, which is heated. One of the few places in the shop the heat actually works. So it'll thaw out a little bit faster, and then we can charge it. See if it's any good. To get the battery out, you just pull the hold down off, then disconnect the battery cables and set them off to the side as far as they'll go. The negative cable runs over the top of the battery, so if you unbolt it, you can set the side that goes over the top of the battery off to one side and the rest of the cable off to the other, so you're not trying to fight the battery out from underneath it. And then we can pop the cover off. Just clips on. Set that off to the side. And then we can lift our battery out. Comes with handles, because manufacturers that make batteries know that they're all junk these days. They want to make them easier to take in and out. Now that our battery is defrosting, we can start pulling the front end apart. We'll pull the bumper off first, what's left of it anyway. It's one screw in the back of it, and then a couple push pins that hold the vent for the brakes in. Because this is a high performance machine, you know, for those soccer moms who are running late to pick up their kids from soccer practice because their hair appointment ran late. We'll head over to the passenger side, pull the rest of our little clips out of here, and our screw. And we'll pull it off the bracket. It doesn't want to come off the bracket. The whole bracket wants to come with. So now we'll pull the closeout panel off the bottom. A couple push pins, a couple bolts. And their bumper is free. Kind of. We still have to unplug the wiring harness. This is kind of nice. There's only one plug for the entire front bumper. It's located on the passenger side, so we unplug that. Now our bumper really is free. Shake the rest of the bumper parts out of it. Now we can start unbolting the top of our fender. And there's one bolt in here that's supposed to be holding the headlight in. We're going to take that little piece of headlight off of there. And then we'll put the bolt back in so we know where it goes later. One bolt on the bottom of our fender in the front. And then there's a couple Phillips head screws to hold the fender liner in. Spin those out of there. And we lost some parts. That's for the bumper bracket that bolts to the headlight. Better save that. We can unbolt the back of the fender liner and the little piece of trim that covers up the bottom edge of the fender. There's a bolt behind that. Phillips head screws in there. We'll pop that little cover off there. We'll wiggle and pull. And we can get to that bolt. Our fender should be free. Still held on to the liner though. Now maybe we can open this door. Not to scratch the paint anymore. There's one bolt at the top of the fender inside the door. And one more behind this little extension for the cowl screen. Pop the little extension off and put it underneath the extension holder / wiper. And we get a wrench in there, loosen up that top bolt. There's not enough room to get a ratchet or anything in there without breaking the windshield. And that windshield looks expensive. I don't want to buy it. Now our fender is completely unbolted from the car, but we still need to get the wheel liner off of it. And I did that so that I could move the fender and get in behind it. That way I can squeeze the tabs on the fasteners and save the fasteners. These are not easy to save unless you can get to the back of them. So rather than buying new ones, I just take them off afterwards. They're meant to go in. They're not meant to come out. So now we can throw our fender in the pile. Now we can pull off the little cowl screen extension. I couldn't get to it before when the hood was closed. So now that the hood's open, I'll just pop that little clip out of there and set that off to the side. Now we can pull off this little grate. One push pin left on it. And we can get to the bolt on the top of our headlight. Not that we really need to take it off since it's broken, but we'll save it. And then bolt the bottom of our headlight. And there's one in the back. And then there's a clip that holds it into the fender. So we'll pop that out of there and unplug our light. The lens of the light is good. The light works. Maybe I can sell it on eBay to one of those people that doctor up cars and they can throw it in and make it look good. It's just missing a chunk from behind where the bumper goes. Now we can pull the wiring harness and the rest of our radar bracket off of our upper bumper support. We're just going to squeeze the clips on our wiring harness so that we can reuse them. If we try and pry them out of there, there's a 50% chance they'll make it. If we squeeze the clips, they pop right out. We'll snap them right back into our new bracket. Put that off to the side. Now we need to disconnect the hood cable that goes from the safety release latch in the front to our hood latch. Unbolt our upper bumper support and figure out how it comes out of our radiator support. There's a tab, but it's kind of bent in there. There's one more bolt holding it on, but we can't quite get to it because it's a little bent. So we're either going to have to walk across the shop and get an extension, and I'm far too lazy for that. So we're just going to bend this bracket out of our way and try to get our impact on it. Good enough. Save me a trip to the toolbox. And our upper bumper support's off. Now we're going to take our center support off. There's one bolt down at the bottom. It's behind the intercooler. So we have to sneak a ratcheting wrench in there. Probably be a lot easier to take the intercooler off, but I want to leave it drivable, so we'll work around it. Toss that in a pile. And now we can unbolt our radiator. Couple brackets on the top. You can try and pull it forward. Some baffles in our way, so we'll pop those off. Lay it down. Now we can get to our AC lines. I'm going to loosen them up. We did check to make sure there's nothing in the system, but I want to make sure, absolutely sure, before it blows up in my face. So left the bolt on a little bit and pulled the line off. Nothing leaked out, so we can go ahead and take it all the way off. And we'll put the bolt back in there so we know where it goes. And we can disconnect the lower line. Pull that off of there, and then we'll put the bolt back in that one so you remember where that one goes. Now I'm going to unbolt the bottom of the condenser needlessly to try and give myself a little more room in here, which isn't going to do much, but got to learn somehow. Now we can tip our radiator forward a little bit more, and unplug some of the wiring harnesses and hoses that go to the top of it. Take off our upper radiator hose. Yay, spring clamps. I'm trying to decide if it might be easier to take the radiator hose off of the engine side, but I determined it was probably easier to take it off the radiator side. So we're going to keep going with this struggle. And we'll pull our radiator hose off of there. We got a little more room on our radiator. Lift it out of the brackets on the bottom. And now we can get to everything else. Pull our lower radiator hose off. We're just going to leave that on the radiator and take it off the engine. The radiator is still half full, so we'll save some of that really expensive blue Kool-Aid. There's a wiring harness and a sensor at the bottom, so we'll unplug that. And we'll try and unplug our cooling fan. And it's not cooperating, so now we're just going to take the cooling fan off and leave it in the car for now. Put the bolt in our pocket so we can lose them. And we'll go put the radiator somewhere where we won't end up spilling it all over the place. Now we get that wiring harness off our cooling fan. We can unbolt our bumper reinforcement. This actually holds our radiator support in as well. I have to move the horn so we can get to the other bolt back there. 2 other bolts. Looks like we got them all. Head over to the other side. All the bolts out of this side. And our reinforcement should come off of there. There's a couple brackets that it hangs on. Now we can finish pulling off this baffle that was in our way. Probably should have taken the reinforcement off first. Would have made getting the radiator out a lot easier. Pull the push pins out of our baffle. And we'll pull the little snout off of our air box. Looks like it's okay. And the rest of the radiator out of our hose that goes to the overflow. Pile. I've come to terms with the fact that trying to keep it drivable is actually slowing me down, so we're going to make it not drivable and take it all apart, and then if we have to, we'll put it back together just enough to move it around. I did cap off all the open lines, the radiator hose and both of our AC lines, so that nothing gets in there because it might be sitting outside for a little while. So we're going to pull our intercooler off of here, pull the brackets off. And we can disconnect our plumbing. And lift it out of there. It does sit on our radiator support that we're taking out. That's why we need it out of our way. Bungee cords will be our friends. Replace the radiator support. Now we'll pop the little clips off for our hood cable that hold it onto the radiator support. Just squeeze the tabs on the bottom and lift them out. And we're going to do the same thing with our wiring harness. We'll unplug it from the horn. And we realize that we don't have to take the wiring harness off. There's one big plug on the back here, and this wiring harness, at least part of it, stays with the radiator support. We got that unplugged. And Honda, in their infinite wisdom, decided to put the plug end on the bracket. If they put it on the other way, we could have left that bracket where it was. We'll unbolt our hood latch as soon as we find the right gear for our driver. Reverse is what we're looking for. Then we can get the rest of our hood cable out of it. First we have to unplug it. And part of this harness is going to be in our way. So we're just going to unclip it. That way we can get to the airbag sensor. We just unbolt it. We'll leave it plugged in. This is a separate harness, so that one doesn't unplug. Sure it's okay. And we'll put the bolt back in there so we make sure the same bolt ends up in the same place. Now we can unbolt our radiator support. Most of the reinforcement bolts held it on, but there are a couple that hold it on independently. Actually 4. And our radiator support should be ready to come off. An AC line that's clipped into the back of it. Lift it off, it sits on some little tabs. And we should have learned that we have to disconnect the airbag sensor. So we're going to take that off of this side. What can I say? I'm a slow learner. Sometimes I have to learn the same lesson multiple times. Nope, not ready to come off yet. Still have one more wire hanging on. disconnect the AC pressure sensor, and now we're ready to come off. So here's part of the reason that our RDX wouldn't start. That's the intake, and it's got a big crack all the way through it. It's actually 2 pieces now. And we got a broken wastegate plug. I'm hoping that we can buy just the wastegate and not have to buy the entire turbo. Otherwise, that's going to be expensive. That had nothing to do with why it didn't run. Now that we know why it wouldn't run, leave me a comment and let me know what you think I did to make it run. And when the short comes out, you'll find out if you were right. Now I want to get the hood out of the way, so we have to pull the hood liner down so we can get to the washer hoses that are behind it. And I tried leaving one of the push pins in there, but it didn't want to stay. So we got our washer line out of there. We'll put a couple of the push pins back in there just so that our liner stays in our hood and keep it all together. Pop our hose off the hood. And now we can start unbolting the hood. There's 3 bolts in there, so we're going to take 2 all the way out. And we're just going to loosen up the back one. It's an aluminum hood, so it's not really heavy. Same thing on the other side. Now we'll hold on to it, pull that last bolt out of the bottom. Try to avoid dropping it through the very expensive windshield. Now we'll get to that other bolt that we left in there partly. It should be disconnected, but the little plastic clip that holds the washer line on goes through the hood hinge and into the hood, so we gotta kind of pull it off of there. And our hood's off, and our windshield's still good. Bonus. So we have our RDX all torn down. We know exactly what we're gonna need. I made a grocery list, so I'm gonna do a little shopping. So when I find these parts, I will be back to put it all together. I will see you then. Thanks for watching.